Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday night, October 9th, 2017 at 7:02 p.m. We have two committee meetings tonight, so we'll start with Finance and Personnel that's chaired by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. There's 4 bullets on the agenda tonight. Transient guest tax, appropriations and transfers, budget timeline, it's that time of the year, and income tax reallocation of revenues. So we'll start off first with the transient guest tax. This issue comes up from time to time before council. We form a contract with our Travel Visitor Bureau, and I believe there's going to be some changes this year. So I'll toss it over to the administration and ask you, what do you want us to do?
Well, it's kind of simple.
Okay.
I would like you to change to what it should be, which is under the Ohio Revised Code, which is 50% of the TGT, transient guest tax, by the Ohio Revised Code goes to the Tourism Board, or in our case, the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
And what was the previous?
Previously it was 35%.
35, so we're asking for a 15% increase.
Correct.
And that is because of the Ohio Revised Code stipulation.
Correct. We did a lot of research to find out why it was 35%. And when I say we, the law director had been doing a lot of researching, as has the auditor's office, doing a lot of researching, trying to figure out where that came from, where the 35% came from. And this has been in play for quite some time. But again, it's not even an interpretation of it. It's just that's what the Ohio Revised Code says, is that 50% of the transient guest tax should go to the, in our case, the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And therefore, that's what I want to do moving forward, is to bring it up to what it should be.
What impact does this have on our budget?
It'll increase or decrease what had been going into the general fund, about $64,000, give or take. Don't hold me to that, but it's in the $60,000 range that will be going now towards the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
That's per year?
Per year.
Okay.
Per year, but as you know, the transient guest tax has been increasing incrementally. Well, I shouldn't say incrementally, it's almost been exponential. It's been increasing regularly. And so we kind of looked at the 2016 TGT, and that would, I believe it was $146,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. Under the 35% that was going to Convention and Visitors Bureau, it would go up to roughly $209,000 annually. Again, that's in 2016's budget, or revenue.
Members of the committee? Member Fall?
Thank you. Personally, I think that this is a great use of public money. Paige Ellis and her staff has shown year after year budget allocations that are efficient and creative and effective by the fact that our visitors, our guest tax, transient guest tax has increased, shows that. And I think that with this increase, the Bureau can even do more, because I think that there is some, there's like a missing piece in our economic development packet. There's things, and I think that we have a lot of potential to do economic development with businesses that do quality of life sort of things, which means our strongest growth sector, which is tourism and visiting and OU alum engagement. And I think it's really exciting because this money can just be used to market Athens County and Athens City better and reach out to existing and potentially future businesses that can come here. And I think that they have shown time and time again that they are good stewards of money in this situation.
Other members of council? Member Pat here.
Mayor, you mentioned that you had done research, but you didn't tell us what you found out as to why the 35% instead of 50%.
We didn't find anything. We were looking to see, other than it had just been by ordinance 35% for a long time. I mean, we couldn't find anything, we were looking for any possibility or any information that would lead us to an answer as to where and why it landed at that percentage. So I don't have anything to- I
10
don't-
years ago, or however
Oh,
long ago?
longer than that.
1986 is when that.
So
was.
1986, 35%, and then it's just been 35% ever since?
I think at one time it was when the Chamber of Commerce was connected with the Visitors Bureau, and so we were funding a dual entity. I don't know if Paige or Kathy wants to speak to that, but that's somewhat.
Well, you're right, it was a split. There was a split that part of it was going to the Chamber of Commerce a long time ago, and then it became then the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then, as you know, there is the now $60,000 annually that was going to the Athens County Economic Development Council. And I should point out that that will still come out of the general fund as we move forward to be members of the EDC as well. So.
Madam President, you had your hand up?
Historically, I think you've got it right, that it was when it was the Chamber and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and it was a 70-30 split at that point, 35% going to each of those two agencies with a $55,000 cap to the Chamber, and then it switched over to Economic Development Council, and we've increased our commitment now to the Economic Development Council to $60,000 per year. I guess my one question is the math of the total income anticipated, or back in 2016 it was $419,000. So of that, so you're saying an estimated $64,000 less will go to the city, but we'll still be able to meet our commitment, the $60,000 commitment to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. It just means that there will be less in our, is it our tourism fund?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So there'll be less money that we have to operate with what we've granted sometimes specific projects out of the tourism fund.
Yeah, if I may, and the auditor and I were looking at these numbers and trying to figure this out as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Auditor, is that in 2016 it was about $418,000 that was in the tourism fund. And again, that's where I came up with the 209 would be 50% in 2016.
Member Costas?
Thank you. I just had two questions. The first one, the ordinance in the ORC. What year was that? Do you know?
I believe, and I can get back to you on that, Member Katsas, but I believe as the law director was looking into it, it was in the early 80s.
Okay.
It may have been 1980, 81 that the ORC started speaking to monies, 50% going to tourism.
Okay. Okay. And that's fine. I don't need an actual a definite date. And the second thing is just to piggyback on what Member Fall had said. It might be slightly different, but I'm looking at the between the Athens County Visitors Bureau and then the Economic Development Council. I see that there are some parallels that could be connected a little bit more, and that what Paige and her department is promoting is also what I believe is also relevant for job attraction and job retention. So I don't know, and I've just looking through some of the pieces at EDC, I see that component not necessarily missing, but it could be highlighted and understood a little bit better. But that's my only comment.
I mean, to get back to that, I agree with what you're saying when it comes to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I have had a number of people come to me over the course of the past year and a half who have a small business and are looking to set up, and I think it would fit nicely within the Convention and Visitors Bureau's wheelhouse if that were to happen, to kind of help find someone a soft landing somewhere in the city of Athens. The EDC tends to target businesses that fall within the ARC Jobs Ohio realm, among other things. And it's also, as you're aware, is, is more of a, kind of based on a membership, if you will. The City of Athens pays, Ohio University pays to be a part of the EDC, as does now Ohio Health / Oblenus Hospital is a private member. There's private members that can be part of that, the county commissioners. So it's similar but dissimilar in some ways too. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're talking about job creation and building a healthy business environment, among other things, in the city of Athens. So.
Okay. Madam President?
And Ohio Revised Code says the effective date on it was '03, and then it was revised again in '05, '06, '07, '09, '13, '14, '15, and '17. So there may have been an earlier form of it before then, but that's
There
what
was,
it's.
they changed the
Was it?
numbering of it,
Okay,
goes back to 81.
okay, good, thanks.
Member
I would just
Happy.
like to say that I'm glad that we found that this, however it came to be.
Oversight.
Oversight, you said it before I said it, that we're now following the Ohio Revised Code as it should be followed. So,
Well, one of the things
and I'm not sure how that happened, but I guess it's time that it happens.
Yeah, we were certainly looking at everything we possibly could, we're even to the point where, is there a possibility that the city of Athens enacted something prior to ORC coming up with something, and it just, this is the right thing to do. I don't know if Paige Allos would like to get up and say anything. It's not for me to ask, I guess that would be for council to ask.
Would you care? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you, because this is a nice little tidy gift. We have really worked hard this year with a very small staff. We've spent a lot of money, but we've not spent it on staff. And it's made things kind of challenging in our office. So this little gift, this little 15% increase, which this year by our calculations will amount to about $65,000 to $66,000, will allow us to hire another full-time person. And exactly what you have discussed and what you've noticed as it's not necessarily a gap, but it's becoming more essential in our community that we have someone work with these, what sometimes is referred to as quality of life businesses, but for us is what attracts visitors here. And the more that we can do that, the more that we know that lodging tax income is going to grow for you. So right now you might look at your fund and think you're going to be down $60,000. I look at it and go, in 3 years, I hope you've made that money back and more. And so we feel really positive about the direction that we're going in, and we're just very grateful. It's very rare. We've watched this percentage increase every year, but to have the percentage increased, again, it's just a nice little gift, and we greatly appreciate it. We'll be back in front of you towards the end of October for our regular presentation, so you'll get all the nitty-gritty details at that point. But I'll just say in advance, thank you.
I would not turn it as a gift. I think that you guys.
I wouldn't either.
I'm always in awe of what you guys do and the quality of workmanship that goes out. And you do our county pride when every time everything goes out, from brood on the bricks, brood on the pathway. What is it?
Brood on the bikeway.
Brood on the bikeway, and all the other things that you do. Campaigns that you do.
It's interesting. We know that our messaging goes far beyond just the tourism realm, because there's this established halo effect. There's a tremendous amount of research that's been done around it. And it basically says that tourism messaging goes across a whole bunch of other areas. So it also entices people to think about, is this a good place to live? Is it a good place to retire? Is it a good place to start a business? Is it a good place to go to school? And those are all things that are of immediate attention to all of us. So if we're able to create some type of partnership development manager within our staff to be able to close some of these gaps, to increase jobs, to build some more businesses centered around the things that are popular in our community, the things we love, then we're going to be better. So.
Member Pappy.
And personally for me, that really, I appreciate everything you said, because that message that you just said right now was perfect. And we talk about your site put out the issue with the millennials and where they are looking to to buy homes in affordable areas, which goes right back to this housing issue. So it all is very circular.
Right.
And it all affects, and I like that term halo effect,
It's called the
because I
halo
think
effect.
that absolutely
Well, what's cool
connects.
is
So if
that-
we can have a person who thinks about that coming in every day, in an office, answers questions related to that, puts out messaging related to that, of course, in your office setting and all of that. I can't see how that wouldn't help Athens, and the fact that we should have been doing this or have this extra 15%, I think we're there. We know what needs to happen with it.
That's good.
Okay, well, we'll get something ready for next, Madam Auditor?
Do you want to trade places with me? Thank you again.
You're done.
Oh, I'm done. I just want to echo what Paige said. I'm very grateful also. Just for the record, I have tried to get this changed several times in the past. So I want to thank this administration and this council for stepping up and just making this change. We will have a little bit less money, but it's the right thing to do. And then to add my bookkeeping thing, we need ordinances, you need an agreement. We had a 3-year agreement that expires this year. We need that, and we need an ordinance stating that we have this agreement and that we are now going to split the money between those two funds to make it official. Thank you.
Okay, one more question.
One more question, Auditor Heck. With the information you've been sending us regarding the state and the consolidation, is there any discussion about transient tax and them wanting to take it to the state level?
No, we give them that idea.
I don't think they're watching Athens City
Yeah,
Council,
they are.
but
Yeah.
Spies are everywhere.
There hasn't been. The transient guest tax is an excise tax, it's not an income tax.
okay.
That doesn't mean at some point they might not move on to that. But at this point, it's collected by our tax department, and but it's not an income tax, it's not confidential, and as I said, it's an excise tax. So it's nothing to say what else they might try to do, but hopefully they won't go that far. It's bad enough what they're doing now with the income tax.
Right.
That's all I can deal with at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I
Let's not
expect,
put thoughts in anyone's
yeah,
head.
exactly, no, don't do that.
Well, I don't have an original thought.
That's
so
all right.
I'm sure somebody thought about it.
So Monday, you'll have something for us to,
Yes, we will.
okay,
Yep.
next Monday.
And we will be hearing about a report from the Visitors Bureau later in October. So, and at one point, we will also have the EDC be coming and giving us a report. I've asked the clerk to invite said persons.
Okay, moving right along, appropriations/transfers. I saw quite a lot of email flashing this afternoon concerning, let's see, what do I have? SEO Corrections Commission PO for $2,500. That's from 101106. And then we also have, in order to process, charges of estimated around $10,000. So we're looking at about 12,500.
That's correct.
No, just the 10,000.
With the 10,000.
Just the 10,000,
Right.
okay. And coming from the general fund.
That's what's been indicated by the auditor. I mean,
Okay.
that's where it comes from. It's the unappropriated balance. We're at the Southeast Ohio Regional Jail. 10,000.
10,000.
10,000
So it definitely will
for the
be 10.
general.
Yes, we
Okay.
agree with that. We needed that amount.
Okay.
And then the medical internal services of 450,000.
Care to speak to that one?
Sure, just to, if you want, instead of talking from the audience, I know I'm not supposed to do that. Yes, those are the funds that we pay our bills with, and we're self-funded, so we pay our own bills. We have 900,000 unappropriated. That's money we transfer from each department depending on the number of employees are in the staffing ordinance. So we have decided we need that, and
might need it suspended. It's one of those where we thought of a couple weeks ago, but it was right after. It's too late to get it in before now. So that and the jail bill are my two main ones.
Those are the two
Unless you have
main.
any questions about that? I know it seems like a lot of money, but that's
Well, it does, yes.
the big ticket fund is paying the medical bills for the employees of the city and their families.
So is it 10,000 a monthly?
Member Pepe?
Yeah.
Two separate things.
Separate.
This comes out of 866, our medical internal service fund.
No, I meant the jail, the 10,000.
No, the charges are, it varies. I say an average of 3,000 a month, so we're looking at the next 3 months. So if we looked back at last year, almost 4,000 in September, 3,000 plus, then it drops down to about 2,000 in November, December. So an average of 3,000 a month, so we need that to get through the end of the year.
This actually is.
But we are going into Halloween right around the corner.
Right,
yeah.
so this is where, there is a little bit of money still left in that fund, but yes, this month will be a big month
Right.
for charges. It's based on how many beds we use from month to month. It's how we're billed.
But this is actually through the municipal court. It's not through the general administration or
Yes,
council or
and
auditor.
not sure why it's been like that since I came in here. I don't know if it goes there first. It goes right to the mayor's office. The police department is supposed to review it and see if those charges all look like they're ours. And then it goes back over to the mayor's office, is the one that actually, enters the voucher and pays it. But it does come out of the court fund.
Okay.
So we could think about changing that, although it's all general fund monies.
Member Pepe?
Is there anything in the ORC that dictates that?
Not that I know of, but I might want to double check that. And it might be.
Just saying.
There might be, yeah.
We do have another item. and
Yes,
If
please.
you could, Kathy, you'll be hearing this for the first time too.
Sure, yes.
stay here.
I don't know if council was aware or not, but we had a very unfortunate event last Friday to where a vehicle, for reasons yet unknown, took out a couple of our vehicles down at the Engineering and Public Works Department, where it went through a fence and then went into our VACCON truck as well as our flush truck. And so significant damage to, yes?
Ooh.
Is there a question?
How big was this car?
It was a pickup truck.
Do we know who
But
it belonged to?
created significant damage, and not only to two vehicles, but also significant structural damage to the garage itself, to where our city engineer is still assessing the structural damage, along with George Envelson is also looking at it to see what kinds of repairs. So I'm bringing that forward, that we're going to have to do something rather quickly in terms of.
Let me guess, it'll come out of the general fund?
No, these are proprietary funds,
Yeah.
but we're not sure
I mean, this
how
type
much
of
is left in
construct-
sewer, for one. Both of those operate, and they're very critical pieces, but they're,
And unfortunately, one of them was, I believe it was the flush truck that had a newer chassis on it. One of the two was essentially a newer truck, but again, significant damage.
Boy, it must have been
Member
flying.
McKee?
Dare I ask, was the pickup truck insured?
I don't know that we know that yet, at this point in time. I haven't seen the full police report on this particular incident.
and we do have insurance through our joint municipal pool, but we also have a deductible, and as the auditor can tell you, we still will have to appropriate the money while we wait for an insurance settlement.
So this is
Member
not
Pepe.
the first time this has happened?
It's
Correct.
not.
Because
It's
I know
not.
since I've sat on this body, we've dealt with this, so do we need to put like Washington DC kind of barriers there so people can't go through the fence?
Andy Stone's looking at that we're possibly doing two things. One, we're gonna have to repair the garage, and possibly relocate the garage. He's looking at that as well. Should the garage, a new garage be put same place, but just put in a different location on the grounds itself, so they're looking at all the ground.
Did this happen?
But then the other thing is that this vehicle went right through the chain link gates.
That's what's my question.
And so, our city engineer is also looking at hardening that entrance point as well. Because this is the second time, as
It
I
is.
remember, over the course of the past 2 years, where a vehicle has,
I had the sense of deja vu all over again.
it kinda does.
Yeah.
I hope the drivers.
They, as I understand it, they were taken to Oblentis Hospital, but that's all I can tell you with any of that, because there is an ongoing investigation into
Okay.
what happened.
Ooh, well, good news, gee.
But we will have to find the money to fix this and work on it.
Isn't our like sucker back thing really rather new?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a relatively new.
Well,
Is
it's,
it not
it's
the-
one
it's
or
not
the
the
other.
city sweeper?
One of ours, no, it's not
Okay,
the,
okay.
it's not the leaf truck. It's,
Okay.
again, it's our suck truck and our flush truck. Yes,
Flush and
I know,
suck.
attractive names. But that said, one of the things that the city engineer is also exploring is if one of the vehicles is totaled and the other one has significant damage, to possibly trade in both of those. And as I understand, there's a third vehicle, and then getting a single truck that does both the flushing as well as the vacuum.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, it was more the possibility of replacing, our street sweeper is 40 years old. That's why it sounds like a helicopter when it comes down the street. So he's saying maybe he can get something between the VACCON and a sweeper that would be dual.
We just bought a street sweeper.
Yeah.
I wasn't
That was-
saying the street sweeper was old.
Oh.
Oh, the vacuum.
Did I say that?
vacuum.
The
Yeah,
leaf.
the
Yeah.
vacuum.
The leafing
like,
thing.
whoa.
Yeah, we just
Sorry,
did
the lever. Yes.
They came this morning and it was
Right.
awesome.
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
okay.
Any more good news?
One last item.
Okay.
As you recall, last year, we changed the mix, the reallocation of revenues, specifically changing the general fund, dropping it down by 1%, and we put 1% into streets extra. We're revisiting that again this year to where we've realized that we've got a lot of street repaving done this year with that extra 1%, a lot of street paving, and think that we're kind of in a position to where we can change that by 0.5%, and put 0.5% into capital improvements, because we've got a lot of capital improvements that need to be made throughout the city. One in particular that I'll mention to council real quick, and that is, that we've got our microwave communication system, the one that was at the fire department headquarters that was hit by lightning twice. Not that one in particular, but the system as a whole. It's 10 years old, and it's getting to that point where we really need to look at a capital improvement to our communication system in the city. I know that we've mentioned this, or I've mentioned this to council in the past, with the conduit that we have in the ground, the possibility of having fiber optics throughout the city, connecting our city buildings as well as signals, traffic signals and cameras. But that is a possible item under the capital improvements that we could start looking at by increasing capital by 0.5% to where we're at least building up a little bit more in that particular fund line for bigger projects, because we've got lots of big projects in the city. So you're gonna see a change in the distribution of funds. All the others will stay the same. It'll still be 5% recreation, 2% or 1% to transportation assistance. General fund will stay the same, but it'll just be reducing the street fund 220 and increasing capital fund by 0.5%.
Is there any other appropriation transfers items that, can't think of any? Well, okay, let's look at the budget timeline. As I mentioned, it's that time of the year. Anyone care to speak to it?
The auditor has provided us with a model that we've reviewed. I don't know if you brought it or not, but basically, we wanted to just say, we're meeting weekly now on the budget. Most of the divisions have received their budgets that the deputy auditor has provided rather detailed information, which is really helpful in building a budget, because not only does it show your projections for this year, both personnel and non-personnel, it also has the last 2 years for comparison, so everyone looking at their budget can look what they've been expending and needs for that. So we anticipate bringing something forth. Is it 25th, the next committee meeting? Do I have that right in the dates?
October 23rd.
23rd, so. But we're going to be meeting over the next 2 weeks to really delve in and start to build a budget back to you. The other components of this budget timeline proceed from there, so that we can, different divisions on different dates, but of course there'll be the non-union benefits, staffing that'll come forward. And the auditor has also asked us to look at some of the other items. What do we really need to look at? One was about the income tax mix, so that was brought forward today. So it's a good working document. I don't know, Kathy, if you have something to share on that.
NSA auditor.
We've been working off of this timeline probably for a long time. And so, yes, I keep putting it out there and changing the dates from year to year, and it's really up to council to decide what they want to talk about. Some of these things, it's not necessary. There might not be any changes as far as the TIF money, but it is a good working document because it makes reminds everybody of all the different things that we're juggling money-wise in our budget. And it's really up to council and the administration to decide how and when they want to talk about it. And I think this happened last year, but by pushing this into 3 meetings in December, with 2 special sessions, it gets it pretty close to Christmas, but I think last year council met a little bit early, so just something to think about if you ever want to change that. We didn't used to even put that on the calendar to go that far, but kind of depends on when you're ready to present the budget. So you can start it in November,
special
or
sessions
you
in
can
November.
start it. We can always try.
Yeah.
We did that last year. I believe we had 1, if not more, special sessions as we went through. I mean, Kathy's put this together. This is wonderful. I mean, this has it mapped all the way out, potentially up to December 18th, if needed. But certainly, what this doesn't include is, putting in special sessions that are not the typical Monday night.
I really only mention that so that council can
Right.
be aware and kind of plan for that. If they don't think they want to meet that close to Christmas, there's nothing wrong with that. But just so you know and can plan ahead.
Questions on that? Map out your holiday schedule now, folks. That's all I have on my committee.
We'll move on to Transportation Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, President Isley. Lighting upgrade and replacement project, East State Street, ODOT LPA agreement, and Athens Public Transit HAP-CAP update. I don't have I'm not sure on the lighting upgrade. If administration could share that, because I don't think we've had any new information back and forth.
Just that this is a no-cost increase, or ODOT putting lighting in. One of the things in talking at staff this morning with the city engineer is that this is likely in conjunction with the camera that's already come before council. But it's going to be lighting down on the 3350 interchange East State Street.
So increased lighting is as part of their project. Okay.
Which we're doing they're doing in conjunction with ours. So we changed the appropriation, but we didn't get the LPA agreement modified, so
So
that's
really,
the
all this
request.
for legislation next week is just the agreement.
Correct.
I sure need it there.
And was there an LPA agreement that came through for improvements on
Camera.
East State? that needs to go through between Della Drive and the Route 50? Because that came to us last week, Mayor Patterson, from Patty Whitmer, and I thought that has to be passed before the end of the year. So we have that on our shared Google Drive.
Is that,
So that may be separate
It's not
from.
the same.
Or it's the same thing?
Same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
well, then maybe we as council should go look at our Google Drives
Yeah,
because,
yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
okay, so what is that?
And that's what I thought the description said for the, where it was occurring.
So it's not necessarily at the interchange, it's also, when you say Della,
Della Drive out East State.
Yeah.
Towards the State Highway Patrol.
right by the State Highway Patrol. So it looks like they want to upgrade at that end, near Holzer, so that would be another,
Well, let's just read it. It says, lighting upgrade and replacement project on County Road 40, East State Street, in the city of Athens begins at 0.01 miles west of Della Drive and ends at United States Route 50 on-ramp. Total length of work, Athens City, approximately 0.54 miles.
Right.
so it doesn't have anything to do with the other interchange. It's this interchange.
But it
Yeah.
did- they
Still-
do still want to do it part of the
Part of the
project.
project.
But it will need a separate set of paperwork, I think is what ODOT is saying, by sending this in,
Yes.
maybe. Is it wrong? We'll get that clarified by the
Yes.
time we,
Sure.
yeah, it's a separate set of paperwork that has to get processed for it. Okay, thank you.
A lot of blanks to fill.
It's just a time to remind the council that because of the city engineer and assistant city engineer being so proficient, we're one of the few entities, we were at one time the only entity in District 10 that was able to enter into these LPA agreements. So, it's a feather in our cap.
Yeah.
That's right.
Though we're a little confused tonight up here at this table, or,
Well, I think one thing is that all these projects have such long lead times, and we talk about them way in the past, and then the more kind of concrete ordinances have to come forward about contracts and those sort of things. So it is somewhat injunctured through the whole process, so.
Okay.
okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the Athens Public Transit HAPCAP update. And we have a member from HAPCAP here today, Jessica Stroh, who will come to the, whatever you call that? Podium. And there's been some conversation, I shared some documents with the other transportation members on council regarding our public transit system, and some conversations that have been discussed in terms of maybe better practices about how we handle our transit system. So I'm going to let Jessica kind of talk us through that, and then administration, would you like to go first?
I would like to go
Okay.
first, because I want to give a little bit of background, and I know Councilmember Pappy, you and I have been in conversations with HAPCAP previously about some of this, but just so the viewers know, there's some interesting background that I'd like to share with everyone, and that is that, you know, the Athens Public Transit really has grown significantly. 2011 ridership was 62,887. 2016, 325,175 riders. So, I mean, it has seriously increased. That comes out to, it's a 5-year, over the 5 years, that constitutes a 417% increase in ridership. And I will share, that September, they once again broke their monthly record of ridership to where they had 59,747 riders for the month of September, which is unthinkable back in 2011 in terms of the ridership. The projection for this year is 400,000 in terms of ridership. And then Athens Public Transit has multiple contracts, the Bobcat Pass, Summit, Courtyard. There's 4 different ways in which Athens Public Transit can administer a program like they have with the bus system. One, they can do it in-house. Two, they can hire a third-party contractor. The city's still being responsible for monitoring and compliance. Number three, designate a grantee, and the grantee is responsible for everything. And number four is a pass-through with another eligible FTA-approved administrator. The city, as you know, we've already authorized or designated HAPCAP as the grantee with this. That designation was January 1 of 2017, and it's currently from that point in time on through December 31st of 2019. The city can redesignate every 3 years. So therefore, and again, this is where Member Pappy was in this conversation, and we've been thinking this through a lot with Athens Public Transit and with Jessica Stroh, and that, you know, there's two major changes that we see being appropriate. And this is largely based on, if you think about it, the track record that Athens Public Transit has had in terms of managing this system over time, and not only the system in Athens, but also Logan, where they have complete oversight over the Logan system. And so what we would like to do is have HAPCAP do all the services in-house. HAPCAP has the capacity and has for over 5 years as being the designated grantee. They have experience running the transportation in-house with their experience, again, as I mentioned, with Logan Public Transit. And then we also think that this change is going to make things more streamlined, streamline the operations, efficiency, flexibility. The system is going to continue to grow as I think with keeping this within HAPCAP's wheelhouse. This doesn't require council action. As the council, the only council action needed is to designate them as a designee. But just wanted to bring this to your attention, and I think Jessica may want to speak more to that. But then there's number two. Then Jessica, I'm going to bow out and let you take over. Is that would be vehicle ownership. Would be HAPCAP owning the vehicles, so the ownership change. As a designated grantee, HAPCAP can actually be responsible for all the assets, including the vehicles within the fleet. And somewhat to the point, HAPCAP would take on this responsibility. HAPCAP would also be responsible for acquiring, owning, and disposing of all vehicles, to include new vehicles, purchases, vehicle purchases with federal and or state dollars. Would have to be done through a memorandum title with the state of Ohio. But in that case, HAPCAP being the designated grantee, that can be done. Again, council would no longer have any need for involvement in the administration of the vehicles under Athens Public Transit to go this route as well. So, Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I am here to answer any questions that you have about either of these changes that are being proposed. The first one, you know, again, is just basically us, instead of procuring a third-party contractor, taking all the services in-house. And we do have experience doing this with Logan Public Transit, and we have been administering Athens Public Transit for the last 5 years, so it's kind of a natural change for us and something that we're confident that we'll be able to do. And so I don't know if you have any questions about that change in the service delivery. I'm happy to answer any.
Council members, just go ahead and ask as you feel ready.
We do a lot of pass-through when we're getting grants and we pass through the amount of money. How would that be affected by this change?
Essentially, right now, as a designated grantee, HAPCAP's responsible for applying for all of the grant funding, state and federal funding. So we are receiving the grant money right now. The only thing that we are getting from the city is a portion of the 1% dedicated income tax, which then goes for the local match requirement for the grants that we use to operate. There are few and far between opportunities for grant funding where nonprofits are not an eligible applicant and the city would have to be the applicant. And in that case, there could be a pass-through situation. But otherwise, right now, HAPCAP's receiving all the federal and state funding for the operations.
Where would the vehicles be physically kept?
Well, right now, Yeah, right now, the city of Athens owns the Athens Public Transit Garage, and that's where the vehicles are currently kept, and we would continue to plan to keep them there. The location is not great. I don't know if you guys have been by there lately. Because we have grown so much, we have outgrown that space. And recently, the state has hired a consultant to do a feasibility study that showed that the system needs to have a bigger facility, but that's kind of a separate long-term issue that we're dealing with right now. But they would be kept at the same place. It's right over on West State Street.
What kind of agreement would the city then have to enter into in order to facilitate that? It's going to be their vehicles in our garage.
Well, technically, there are vehicles
But
along
if
with the state of Ohio. Do I understand that correctly? Mm-hmm. Did you not say that if in 3 years, I don't foresee that, but if HAPCAP was not to remain the designated grantee, there'd be a memorandum of title still between the city and ODOT?
Yep.
I mean, the reason these funds are there are to run public transit, so.
Essentially, when the city designated us as a grantee originally, the city turned over all responsibility to HAPCAP for the administration of the project, including the maintenance of the garage. And so we actually have a facilities plan for the garage that we administer each year to make sure that we're keeping it in good shape.
I'm not sure I understand what differences there would be between what it is now. So are some of the services you grant out to a third party, and so you're saying now you would manage them all in-house?
Right. Mm-hmm. So currently for Athens Public Transit, we only do the administration, marketing, compliance, grant writing, invoicing, reporting, all of the policy and planning.
You do a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't actually hire the employees
Okay.
and are not responsible for the day-to-day operation. So that is what would change.
Okay.
And we do for Logan Public Transit. So for Logan Public Transit, we hire the employees and we own the vehicles. We're responsible, for everything else that we do for Athens Public Transit, but that one piece.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Member McGee.
Thank you. Just a question then, whose employees are the current employees?
The current employees are, they're McDonald's Transit Associates is what they have been going by. They're now owned by RTAP Development America, which is part of RTAP Development or World or something like that. They're out of Paris, the company that actually owns the McDonald Transit Associates, which is the company that currently we have hired to provide the service.
So to clarify, McDonald Transit, or the new name, we'd no longer be negotiating with them or have a contract with them.
Right.
I think that's a good way to look at it. We would not be involved with them.
That's accurate.
We're
Correct.
essentially,
Here's one of the things, and again, this has been part of the conversation with all the positive experience that has been gained with HAPCAP and Athens Public Transit, and with this parent company being Paris, France, correct? Mm-hmm. That we would be keeping it local, basically, with having HAPCAP running, Athens Public Transit being local, so it's retaining things locally as opposed to being under an international conglomerate.
So just to add to that, what city administration and I, as chair of transportation, who has been involved with meeting with HAPCAP professionals now for quite some years, is that I, as the chair of transportation, and I'll let administration speak for themselves, believe that HAPCAP has the ability and the experience to run the system. And we don't need another contractor out there involved with that.
correct, we're actually deemed a hybrid model. Most other places, as Jessica said, have the Logan, we're the operational and along with all the other administration. And HAPCAP is assuming a great liability with this change as well, but they have grown, and they're running a wonderful system. So.
Well, and you do have experience working with Logan, and maybe you can speak to council a little bit about that. I mean, you've basically been running the Logan system for...
Since 2007. Yeah, and it's been a very good relationship, and basically we would continue to participate in all the city transportation advisory committees. We would continue to report to city administration and to council as requested or as needed with important updates or things that are going on. There's a lot of partnerships that still happen with the city because of the shelters and stops and planning and with all the different departments. And so there's still coordination that needs to happen, and we would, any kind of reporting or information that you guys would want. But essentially, and then we can get into the change number 2 about the vehicle ownership. If we do both changes, your, day-to-day involvement in having to do ordinances around the transportation budget or vehicles, would go away.
And I would say you're a not-for-profit agency, not a governmental agency, but I think this is an excellent example of collaboration and communication. This model has been established now for quite many years. I know when President Nisley was chair of that advisory committee. And there's a good track record there with the collaboration and the conversation going back and forth. So a good example of that already exists in the city.
So to move on to the second change, that is the vehicle ownership change. So these two don't have to happen hand in hand, and they probably would not happen simultaneously if you guys are interested. But as a designated grantee, you do not have to have any responsibility in the vehicle acquisition, ownership, or disposition. That is something that, as a designated grantee, we can do. And so, I don't know what questions that you might have about that, the vehicle part.
When we identify vehicles to get rid of, a lot of times, if they're fairly functional, we will offer them to other nonprofits or governmental agencies around here, and I'm wondering if that would be one of the things that you could do. I know that a lot of the smaller city villages and stuff have taken advantage of that sort of thing.
Well, most of the public transit vehicles, we really do not get much interest in. When they're ready for disposition, they're ready for disposition, and they're such unique vehicles that local organizations aren't normally interested in them. What ODOT has us do is put them up for a disposition process where we put them out for bid. And what we do with that money is it goes back into the capital replacement fund. But for most of the vehicles over the last couple of years when we've disposed of them, we've gotten less than $1,000, I think. Sometimes we've even had to just get the money for the metal.
So when this issue first came up, my biggest concern was the employees. And as I began to understand it more and through the conversations with the director of HAPCAP and with our administration, I realized that probably for our employees this is a better operational model because their boss is an international company. The people who would be supervising them and working with day-to-day issues and communicating with them are locals, and that was already mentioned once. But then that made me, because everybody knows everybody and they can talk to each other pretty easily, and you're not calling New York or Paris or wherever. So I think this is a better model for the employees, I hope. That's one of the concerns that I had.
I can't speak, for the employees currently.
Correct, I can't either.
Yeah, but I can say, in terms of how HAPCAP treats employees and runs our programs in terms of communication and, that it's everybody is treated very well, and we have really good policies and insurance, and that would be extended to all of the employees that would be brought
Mayor
up.
Patterson?
I think to Member Pappy's point, though, is that it does remove a layer of bureaucracy to where it
Yes.
streamlines communications within the employee structure, as opposed to the way it is right now, correct? Is that-
Yes, like even you guys know Michael really well, so he's our administrator, and currently, he's not even in the facility with the employees. So as we're trying to work and negotiate different projects and plans, there is that extra layer of organizational structure that once that goes away, we'll, I think, be able to do a lot more and create a lot more of efficiencies and have better communication.
One more thing I wanted to point out, and this did come before council, or at least maybe it came in some of our meetings, to where I know Michael and Jessica were both asking whether or not there was a way in which we could have funding sitting somewhere to where they could act more quickly under govdeals.com, where a bus might show up for 30 days, but with appropriating and going through council and ordinances, it doesn't make that efficient for them, and this would allow for that efficiency to take place too, to where you could operate more quickly. I'm curious too, when a bus does live its commercial usefulness, can you also use govdeals.com to put that bus on there and
Yes.
actually put it out and sell it within 30 days or less?
Yeah, and we use govdeals.com for the go buses, and that was kind of HAPCAP's first experience using govdeals.com, and I think that we will use that now more often in the future. It was very easy to use, and but to your point about acquiring vehicles, that is something that would be of a lot of interest to us, because as we are looking at being flexible, adding on routes, working with all of these partners, one of our biggest hurdles often is vehicles and being able to acquire those quickly, and so that would be a big benefit for us.
Thank you. I had two questions, basically. One was, does the city of Athens currently subsidize HAPCAP, and would we, if so, would we continue to do so under this arrangement? And to what amount? That would be the first question. And the second question was just, I wanted to thank you because I think your organization does a wonderful job. I just wondered that as far as the increase in riders that the mayor mentioned, is most of that attributed to the Go Bus by any chance?
Well, the Go Bus numbers aren't part of these numbers at all.
They're not. Okay, well, I'm
This is
even
just
more
Athens
astounded.
City Transit.
Okay, well, I'm astounded, but for the question of the subsidies, would that change at all?
Well, at this point, no. I mean, it's the 1% that comes into 214, which is the Transportation Assistance
Right, I
Fund.
see.
And as I understand it, that's our local match, and that would stay in play with this going forward. So
we would still be subsidizing?
Well, we'd still be subsidizing. I mean, this is the city's bus system.
Sure, I understand. I just wanted to
Sure, yes.
make sure
It's a
I
service to the
understood.
public.
Sure.
Right, and ultimately, the accountability still rests with the city through this process.
So, Member Nisley, President Nisley, let me just ask one thing. I think initially when we began the conversation, we said there was no legislation needed. So we probably need to clarify that again. And then Member Nisley, did you have a question? President Nisley?
Just had a question. If you're aware of the status of the agreement allowing the university students, there was a one-year pilot, I believe, with the university.
Been renewed a second year and
has-
invigorated.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Right,
good.
the word
because-
pilot was removed.
Yeah, there is no pilot.
So,
Well, that's
yeah.
good
It's a
news,
program.
Because I think students are
went up.
very eager.
Oh,
In fact,
yeah,
they're eager
big
to
time.
learn more about the transit system and how to get different places. We've heard a couple of tales of somebody getting on at the Convo Center and said, I'm going to East State Street, and kind of being confused, so.
I was rather
But they're very
surprised
eager.
at our meeting with the student senate, I don't want to call it ignorance, but the lack of knowledge about the transit system and where it goes and how you get on and so on. And there were suggestions about kiosks and placards and so on.
I think that is a good
Obviously,
point.
success.
Yeah, it's Bobcat Pass. If we talk about the ridership numbers, Bobcat Pass has been huge. But if you think about many of our riders who may be accessing it, probably have never accessed a bus before. They come from suburban areas, or they may not have access to a bus. So maybe that was some of the student senate people that you were responding to. And they've been invited many times One is on the email currently from Student Senate to
And-
attend advisory meetings as well.
I know Jesse Schmitzer, the Athens County Mobility Coordinator, has been in contact with somebody from Student Senate, I think, post that meeting to kind of talk with them about how to best get the information and outreach out there.
Thank you.
Regarding the question about the needed legislation, I did check with the ODOT. From ODOT's perspective, regarding having us do the services in-house, there is no legislation that would be needed because you already designated us as the grantee. Regarding the vehicle change, there probably is some city legislation that would be needed to change the ownership of that.
Just one last question, please. I had been contacted by several citizens who were hoping that the routes could be expanded into the Stroud's Run area, and I'm not sure whether that could be done with a transfer of everything to your office. Would that complicate anything?
You know, right now, we've been doing the planning portion of it anyways. Michael Lockman has, so all of the planning will just stay the same. I mean, we continue to strive to look at all of the county and what needs there are through the mobility program, the countywide mobility program, and within the city limits, and we're trying to redesign routes and plan for those populations and get input. And right now is a great time because the coordinated transportation plan is underway, and there's surveys available for residents. So if you know of people that have specific concerns or needs, you can always have them contact us so that we can incorporate that information into our planning.
Maybe we can put that, some kind of coordinated link on our website.
We had it up.
Okay. Maybe star it or something,
Sure.
because I think that these sort of planning processes with a lot of public input always results in better outcome.
And I know that you as HAPCAP are also talking to the county commissioners. They are invited to our advisory meeting. They don't always show up. I think they have other meetings. But the bottom line is, as these transportation lines that say Athens City Transport extend into the county, which we have done on our own to Chansey, to the Plains, to other areas outside the city limits, that more coordination from even township trustees, I don't know, but people should get more involved with that, because I think that's an excellent point, Member McGee, is that there are a lot of people from the city who would like to go to Stroud's Run but don't have a vehicle. Those are all, I guess what I'm saying is these groups are coordinated and do speak with each other, and the people in your office are very good about going out and reaching out to those folks as well.
Yeah.
Jesse is very good at that as well.
There is a very changing landscape right now. You guys may have seen the Athens News article just today on the net transportation and the changes with Job and Family Services over to the Department of Medicaid and the impact that might have. In Athens County alone, the article, stated $1.7 million worth of money that's being used to transport people right now in Athens County is going to change. The way it's administered is going to be a lot different. And so this is a really critical time, and that's not the only issue, but that's an important one, that we're all working together in a coordinated fashion and trying to build this public transit system in a way that is going to support the needs of the community. So that's very exciting. It's good. I mean, that's not exciting that that's happening, but it's exciting to me that in Athens we do have a foundation of people that are very interested, and it's not just in bus transit, but all sorts of different ways, and to get around, bike and the bike path, the bike, walking, active transportation. It all goes hand in hand, and we got to use every single way we can to get people where they need to go. So, yeah, it's a great time right now in terms of the communication and coordination in the community.
So, council members, any other questions?
Sounds good.
Feel comfortable to move forward? Okay. Administration? Thank you so much, Jessica, for coming this evening.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Okay.
And that would conclude the Transportation Committee.
Okay, and then that concludes our meeting. We'll stand adjourned at 8:07 p.m. See you all next Monday.